Students in one class, each day one of them explodes, and no one knows the reason. If you were at school, university, or work, and someone you really couldn't like suddenly exploded, do you think you'd be happy? Just think, if you were happy, I'd like to tell you to change your mind and not be happy. Because you'll realize that it's not just him who will explode, everyone in that place is the ones who are exploding. So it could be your turn one day. Just like the teens in the movie Spontaneous, one of the thrillers released in 2020. And it starts in a school where the students are just sitting there, minding their own business, while the teacher is explaining mathematical equations. The teacher casually mentions that a single equation can have more than one form, and Mara isn't interested in any of that and is sitting there bored, playing with her pen. Then, the pen falls to the ground and she feels embarrassed, afraid that someone might have noticed. Then she bent down to pick it up, and that's when an explosion happened, leaving the entire classroom covered in blood. No one knows what just happened. When she gets up, the entire class has already run out in fear, and she's left sitting there trying to understand and process what just happened. Then, she realizes that it was Caitlin, the girl sitting in front of her, who exploded. Literally, the girl just exploded. Then, Mara saying that she doesn't know what happened, but to her, Caitlin was just a side character in her life anyway. She was her friend since they were kids, growing up together until they got to this point. But as they grew older, Caitlin made new friends and had many admirers. So, her first friends were some of the most notorious drug dealers in the city, and then men started liking her a lot. One of her friends saying that she was really cool. He mentions that he loved her and was planning to invite her to things like going to the movies and sitting in the back row, or other similar outings. Then Mara goes outside and finds her friend Tess, who asks her what happened. Mara tells Tess that Caitlin exploded. Tess asks if there was a bomb in the school. Mara responds that Caitlin literally exploded. Then she sees Caitlin's shoe, which is covered in blood. After that, we see the third class, where the police are investigating what happened with the students. The officer asks her if Caitlin said anything strange to her before, like that she would explode. Mara responds that Caitlin had said things like that a lot. When she sees the officer writing it down, she says, "What are you writing, man? I'm just joking with you." Then she mentions that they took all their clothes and gave them police and prisoner uniforms. She asks the woman who took her shoe if they will wash it. The woman tells her, "Do you really want to wear the shoe after it's soaked in blood again?" She joins her friends and tells a joke, feeling awkward because no one laughs except for one person named Dylan. She laughs at his reaction so he doesn't embarrass her, and he laughs at what she said. Then one of the others gets upset and asks when they will be let out. She tells her that they'll be let out when they know it won't happen again. The girl asks what won't happen again, and she explains that it's someone exploding suddenly without any reason. Then she leaves the police station and finds her family outside, hugging her, and they leave together. They ask her if she wants to eat or if she needs anything, but she tells them no. Then they reassure her that the person responsible wasn't from the school and that she shouldn't doubt her friends there. She tells them that she isn't suspicious or worried. She just wants to go to sleep because she has a headache. When she goes to her room, someone tells her that he's been interested in her for 2 years. She responds by asking if he could refrain from sending any explicit photos of himself. He then sends her a picture of the President of the United States. She laughs and tells him to send more like that. They continued chatting and joking around. The next day, there was a speech at school about Caitlin's death. Mara and her friend ended up laughing at the kids who were speaking, finding their words to be fake. Then at Caitlin's funeral, where they feel a deep sense of sadness as they witness her family and the mourners genuinely grieving and crying. Mara feels overwhelmed by the intensity of her sadness and realizes she needs to escape it. She goes to the drug dealers that Caitlin used to buy from. They tell her that they have a high-quality drug that she can mix with any drink. After letting it sit for a while, she drinks it and will start to feel great. They go to a cafe and have something to drink. Mara says, "I'll drink this now and see what it does to me." She mixes the drug into her drink and consumes it. Then she tells that Tess has been her friend since elementary school, and they agreed to be best friends since then. One day, Tess's father divorced her mother to relax, along with Mara and her mother, to the beach. They were sitting there, smoking with their feet in the sand. Since that day, they promised each other that this would be the dream of their lives and that they would definitely achieve it someday. Then they chatted a bit about the boys at school. Mara told her not to look back because there was someone behind them who looked at them. Tess looked back and asked if Mara meant someone strange was behind her. They then realize it's Dylan, who is in their class. He asks if he can join them, and after a moment of thought, they agree and tell him he can sit with them. Then they ask him if he enjoyed Caitlin's funeral, joking that it was the best funeral. He replies that it was the second best. He says that his father's funeral was better. They fall silent for a moment, and then he adds that he was just joking. They respond by saying that his joke is like the jokes of Dr. Strange. He then tells her that the man she spoke to yesterday, She said it was unbelievable. Tess asks if he sent her explicit photos. He replies that he sent pictures of the President of the United States. She responds, saying that it's the equivalent of explicit content. Then he tells them that when Caitlyn exploded in seconds and died, he started thinking about life in a sarcastic way and asked himself, and then what? He says that a person can die at any moment, and there's no point in delaying or fearing to do something. So he came to talk to her. She asks him if he's coming with her to the ladies' room. He asks. Tice tells him that Mara has gotten too much into drugs and wants to go back to the toilet and needs someone to hold her hair. He responds, okay, let's go then. They go to the toilet, and she apologizes for this being their first meeting. She explains that she often forgets her medication and also doesn't use drugs excessively. He tells her not to worry about it, and when she looks at him, she sees several people. He asks her how many she thinks are from him. She replies that it doesn't matter, and she doesn't want to go back, even if she tries to count them. After they go outside and sit, he tells her that he doesn't know what's going on inside him, but he's been thinking about her for a long time. He says, we're all just people, but I love you. She responds, do you really think I don't know you? You're in our school. She says, all we know about you is that your father died because a pile of organic fertilizer fell on him. Then she apologizes, saying she's sorry for saying that out loud and not believing it. He replies, it's okay, don't worry about it. She adds, but that's just a rumor. How could someone die from a pile of organic fertilizer falling on them? They wouldn't even include that in films. He died in a normal accident, but generally, he says, I'm not blaming the drug for what you said, I'm just blaming you. She tells him that his comments are indeed the drug's effect. He then asks her if she wants to come with him to an upcoming match. She responds, honestly. He asks her what's wrong, and she tells him she's trying to think of an excuse to give him so she doesn't have to go, but she can't come up with one. He offers to give her if she needs it. She laughs and says, no, I'll come. You're convincing. There are a lot of you, but it's okay. He asks her if she enjoyed the evening and if she was happy with their conversation. She replies, yeah, I'm happy too much, really. Then she goes out with Tess and tells her about what happened. She says she doesn't know what to do or what she wants right now, but she's not upset about it. The next day, they go to school for the costume day. Mara wears a beautiful dress, but no one can tell what she's dressed as. Tess tells her she should have worn something more noticeable like her or a more recognizable costume. Then Dylan appears, dressed in old clothes as well. He asks her if she's dressed as a high-class woman or something. She responds, yeah, good guess. They sit together after noticing that the classmates have created a memorial for Caitlyn, setting up a shrine with pictures and commemorative messages. Then they sit down, and Dylan tells her that he can explain the timeline of his admiration for her. He tells her that on the first day he came to the class, he joked with her from a distance, and it seemed like she was annoyed with him. Then he saw her later in the cafeteria, where she was hitting a guy who tried to touch her inappropriately. Then, he saw her on the day of the sports event, where she came to tell the coach that she was upset, dressed in black and saying she wouldn't cheer for them that day. When the coach objected, she cursed at him. He also mentions that she recited a spring poem in class last year, which was a bit cheesy, but he liked it. Then, he didn't see her on the day Caitlyn exploded in the classroom. He kept looking for her until he found her running in the hallway, and he checked to make sure she was okay. Then she gave him Caitlyn's bag because she didn't know what to do with it. He took it from her and helped to ease her anxiety. He told her that she also has his number, but he didn't think she would remember or care about that information. He added that she's also on his Facebook. Then at the match, he asks her if she's listening or paying attention, as he suspects that she might not be interested in what he's saying. She tells him, no, I'm really focused and paying attention. But look at the cheerleaders. They always do this strange move during every match when they cheer and say a specific line in the team's song. He says he didn't expect her to focus on something like that. Then, while they're taking pictures, she tells him, I also have a memory I think about when my admiration for you started. He asks her when she started admiring him and what that moment was. She replies, it was when you said the same line they're going to say now. He hears the line from the cheerleaders, repeats it while laughing, and they share a look. Then, everyone around them starts screaming and running from the place. They look ahead and realize that one of their friends from the cheering squad has exploded in the same way Caitlyn did. They walk away, and Mara feels overwhelmed, hugging Dylan as she's upset. Their friend who died was very active, constantly moving, and bringing energy to every place he went. Then he suddenly died without any warning, and no one understands why. At his memorial service, they are surprised to find out that he was gay. They then say it doesn't matter because he's dead anyway, and he's in hell. Afterward, Mara at home with her family, and they tell her that the school has been completely closed. She asks them why and how long it will be closed. They tell her it's due to what's happening, and they don't understand the reason for it. The school will remain closed until everything is resolved, but they say they will keep studying, preparing, and applying to universities as usual, and not let it ruin their future. That night, there's a party to comfort and support each other after what happened to their classmates. Mara is waiting on the road. Dylan arrives driving a milk truck and says, "Welcome." She asks him, "What's this?" He replies, "I kept looking for a car that fits the money I have right now, and I couldn't find one. I had dreamed of getting a nice car, but unfortunately, as you can see, with everything that's happening," he continues, "and anyone can die at any moment. You have to do what you want. I asked about the price and thought everyone there would laugh at me, but they talked to me normally, gave me the price, and it turned out to be cheap, so I bought it and came." They got in the truck together and went to the party. After entering and getting their drinks, they were like other minors drinking beverages they shouldn't have, as they were away from their parents. Then they decide to go out for a walk and talk about anything, as the purpose of the scene is for him to steal a kiss from her. He tells her that something people don't know about him is that, after his father died, he would play music that his father liked, dance, and sing in the barn while crying. He kisses her, and they hear hysterical screaming coming from inside the party. They rush back in and find someone has exploded. They can't understand why people keep exploding whenever they're in the same place. Then we find out that the one who exploded was one of their friends. They are upset and cry over her. The next day, they're in the district attorney's office with Tess. She asks them, "So tell me, why are you exploding people?" The two girls are startled, but she reassures them, saying, "Don't be scared, I'm just joking with you." Initially, they suspected it was intentional, but that suspicion no longer exists. She says, "Unfortunately, we're trying to find out what happened, but haven't reached a solution yet. We're getting closer, though. The important thing is, I need you to help me." They ask her how they can help. She tells them, "I want drugs. Any amount from what you get. Don't worry, no one will hurt you. I just want to understand what happened. 3 people exploded on their own, literally. Maybe that's the cause." She goes to the drug dealers and says, "Give me all the quantity you have. It will benefit both you and us, and the government will pay for it anyway." They agree, excited because they had never dreamed of such a sale. They tell her, "Come with us, we'll get the key and bring it to you." They explain, "We hide the drugs in another place in case the FBI catches us at any time." She gets into the car with them, but as they're driving, the driver explodes and dies, causing chaos. The girl tries to take control and drive, but unfortunately, she also explodes. Then we see Dylan arriving and finding the overturned car. He searches for Mara but doesn't find her, only discovering traces of blood on a nearby stone. He follows the blood trail, calling out for Mara. He finds her by the river, trying to keep the blood away from her, and crying in his arms. She tells him that the people exploded suddenly in front of her. He tells her, "I brought you some clothes. Wear them." She replies, "You brought me a prison jumpsuit?" "No, I'm not wearing that." He responds, "That's all I could find. It just came to mind." When she goes to change, she finds people in white clothes approaching them. She and Dylan start screaming. They then come to their senses and find themselves in a place entirely covered in plastic. They gradually realize that the government has isolated them in a place and set up quarantine to study their class following the recent disaster. They keep asking them what they were doing over the past 2 months, what they were eating, and who they were spending time with. They try to collect as much data as possible, with the students undergoing these interrogations daily. Meanwhile, their families outside know only that they are inside. Mara spends her nights talking with Tess and her mornings with Dylan. They are left in the facility to interact freely, with kissing and hugging being common, and the atmosphere being quite relaxed. Later, someone from Washington comes in to give them a lecture, stating that Washington is not staying silent and is looking for a solution, with the whole country supporting them. They respond skeptically, expressing their doubts about whether the authorities are genuinely addressing the situation or just pretending to be involved. They said, "But this time, we are the situation itself, and we see that nothing is being done about it." They continued, "And no one knows our interests better than us, so just leave and let us go out. You're not helping us." They continued to cheer, chant slogans, and protest. Amidst this uproar, one of them exploded. It was one of their friends who had originally started the argument with the man. Then, every now and then, someone would explode among them, whether they were sleeping, talking casually, or during lessons, and the parents were outside. And every now and then, someone would learn